Okay. Cedarville Zoning Board of Adjustment is called to order. All rise for the pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Notice of this meeting has been satisfied in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Law 1975 by advertising in the Home News Tribune, posting on the bulletin board, and filing with the Borough Clerk. Madam Secretary, roll call, please. Here.
Mr. Esposito.
Here.
Mr. Green.
Here.
Mrs. Gottstein.
Here.
Mr. Castleton.
Here.
Mr. Bella.
Here. Okay, we have three cases this evening. We will hear them in this order. 2319 first, 2320 second, and then 2301, which is the animal hospital, will be third. So first case is 2319, Teresa Cormier. Please come up. 18 Leah Street. 8, sorry.
I've never done this before, so I have no idea.
Right, we'll help you out. Okay, so the attorney will swear you in.
Since you both may testify,
Mhm.
you both please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will testify truthfully before this board?
I do.
You may lower your arm, and please give your name and address and tell us why.
Okay, my name is Teresa Cormier. I live at 8 Lena Street, Sayreville, New Jersey, 08872. I purchased the home in May of 2014. I moved over here from Staten Island, and it was my first home. At the time I moved in, the back fence that was to the back of the home was damaged from Sandy, which the previous homeowner did not replace or repair. When my previous neighbor behind me approached me and wanted to put up a PVC fence, he voluntarily said that he would take down the chain link fence to help me out, and I said that was fine. But he left the remaining poles going up on the left-hand side of my property. Because of circumstances, I've had multiple surgeries and I was out of work on and off for a little while. Financially, I wasn't able to put another fence in its place. My daughter subsequently I have my first grandchild. She's 3 years old. I'm babysitting her now pretty consistently, at least once or twice a week. And she likes to run around the yard. And unfortunately, you know, there's nothing to keep her contained. And even though it's a very, not as widely used as Washington Road is, it's still used. And I'm just afraid that something could happen. She could get hurt. So we came to the construction board. We filled out all the paperwork. We were declined because we were told that the street was a paper street on the map, and that we were also a corner property. So therefore we had to come in a certain amount of feet. And it just didn't make sense to me because I'd be losing a lot of space, you know, for the yard. So I was informed that there was a process that I could go through to come here and petition for the PVC fence to be put up. So my husband would like to, if he wants to add anything to it, he may. This is my husband, David. We married 2 years ago, August 15th.
Okay, when they took down the chain link fence, the chain link part, on the left-hand side of our property, which is where we want to put the PVC fence up, there was at that time a series of large fir trees there, creating the block. They were over 25 feet high. Because of the drought 2 years ago, the owner at 26 Cheesequake had to take them down. And when they were taken down, that's when the whole place came wide open. And that's one reason, main reason why we want to close out that area, to keep the grandchild inside, so she won't get hurt. In fact, that was the second time I understand that homeowner had put a set of trees up. In fact, after he had decided that he didn't want to put a third set of trees up there, so he tried to get a fence put up. By the way, those trees were right next to, for all practical purposes, on our border law, on our property line, which is where the chain link fence was on the property line itself. And that's basically what the story is, why we need a variance from you guys to put the fence up.
Mhm.
As my wife, sorry,
Go ahead, no, go ahead.
as my wife mentioned, there are no,
There's a
I'll
lot of
keep-
traffic coming through now.
yeah, anyway,
Yeah.
the building that is there now, the 26 Cheesequake, that was allowed to be put up because it was given a waiver, because the right of way there is totally unimproved. The only thing there really is the grass lawn that the owners have been taking care of. Where this street on the tax map is, which doesn't go all the way through either down to Jensen. But because you'd have to take out half the house that's there on Jensen if you wanted to put the street in. But anyway, what they did, part of the waiver that the people received in 1990 when they built that house, besides getting permission not to have to improve the area by putting up curbs and sidewalks and stuff, they were also given the okay to put in a blacktop driveway and parking lot area, which basically covers about 1/3 of the area. If Cheesequake Road was there, is where this blacktop happens to be. And he uses it's all, that blacktop basically almost touches our borderline.
Mhm.
But that's another story, but doesn't pertain to us. What we just need is the fence
Mhm.
to keep our granddaughter from getting out near the street.
So you want to put the fence along the
On the-
Cheesequake Street?
Yes.
How far away from Lena will it be?
It's gonna be back pretty far because the way the fence, we've already spoken, when we had originally spoken to the company. Where the existing poles are, that's pretty much where we're gonna put our fencing gate.
But
And then our neighbor who has the property adjacent across from us would like to just extend the property up to just where his trees are, and that's only maybe another 6 feet. If
at
that,
that, yeah.
if that, it's very
But-
small.
To answer
So the
your
whole fence
question
is
though,
gonna
as
go-
far as the fence being back from Lena, it would be,
How many feet?
I would say maybe 25 to 50 feet, somewhere in there
Yeah,
from the actual street.
Mhm. Yeah, we're not gonna be that close.
Right. So it lines up with the back of your house.
Right, it would line up with what the property line.
Right.
Mhm.
Okay, and Cheesequake, I noticed on this drawing, there's a lot number 3.
Mhm.
So this Cheesequake doesn't go any further than that lot line, right?
Exactly.
Correct.
The way the street comes down, Cheeseway comes here and then curves to the left. And then my house is first, and then number 6 is right next to it, going towards Reed. So if you're coming from Washington and you're going south, that's how the street looks. So basically, it's just like almost looks like
It's a dead end,
cul-de-sac in a sense, but it's,
just a dead end, yeah. Height of the fence, just for the record,
for the piece facing 26, 6 foot, and then the gates would be 4.
Which would be the same as
all
the other PVC
Right.
fences around our property.
Right, it would be consistent with all the other homeowners that are with us that will have fences.
all right, any board members have questions on this application?
Yes,
Mr. Green?
the PVC fence is replacing the link fence that was there previously, correct?
Yeah,
And also you are asking for 5 feet of the fence along where your garage is
yes,
to the other thing.
for the other piece, yes. Mhm.
And that's all you want?
That's it.
Okay. No further questions?
That's it.
Anybody else? Any members? Yeah, Jay, just for the record, we always ask this, any site triangle issues?
Mr. Chairman, it's out of the site triangle, but it's not really an issue here because what you have is a kind of a private driveway that's in a public right of way, leads to
Mhm.
one house. So it's not a street intersection, it's more of a
Mhm.
driveway intersection, but the fence does not block sight distance.
Correct.
Just the one variance, just the fence?
Mhm.
Yep, just the fence setback, because it's technically a corner lot.
Any other members have questions about the fence? Open to the public. Anyone in the public wish to make a comment on this application? Seeing no one. Can I have a motion on this application?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve this application.
Do I have a second? By Mr. Bella. Okay, yeah, I think just a comment on this, since it's a dead-end driveway, as Jay described, I don't think there's really any issues. Normally, a front yard,
Mhm.
we don't go this far, but this is a kind of a special case.
We appreciate that.
Mr. Bella.
Thank you.
Right. Roll call vote, Joan? Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Knutson. Yes. Mr. Castleton.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Okay, all right, your application has been approved.
Okay.
Next month, our attorney will draw up a document. We will approve it next month, and then you can get the building permit at the building office next month.
Okay. That
Okay.
sounds great.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
You don't have to be here.
Okay. All right, good. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay,
All right.
I'm sorry. All right, our second application is 23-20.
Talking to, Andy. Yes.
Last minute advice. Give him a second. Listening to. All right, next case is 23-20, Emmanuel and Patricia Oniochi. Onochi, okay, 33 Driftwood Drive.
Please raise your right hand. Solemnly swear or affirm that you will testify truthfully before the board. You may put down your hands. Please give your name and address and tell us why you want this fence.
So my name is Patricia Anochi, and the address is 33 Driftwood Drive in Farley, and this is my husband.
My name is Emmanuel Onochie, the same address.
So we.
Right, so I think there's a second microphone up there, so he can use that, okay?
So we bought the property and we closed in October of last year. And, there is no fence currently. So we have 4 little girls from 7 to 16. So the property is a corner lot. We have a park place that leads to the park on the left side of the property. So we proposed a 6 feet PVC fence to put around the property, just for security and some privacy. And we have a big yard with a pool that the girls don't feel comfortable being out there, because of the traffic of people going to the park and all that. They feel exposed, spending time out there. So we proposed the 6 feet PVC fence to put around The back was approved and the right side was approved, but the left side wasn't because according to the denial, we are on the corner lot, therefore we are considered to have two fronts. So he said we can do 20 in, but the problem with 20 in will be on the pool, on the concrete of the pool, which is not possible. And we proposed 15 in all, 5 from the property line in. So everything will be 15. And he said that we can come through this process in order to.
Okay. Jay, do you know where the fence is on this one? I don't see it on my drawing.
Yes. There is an existing fence around your pool now. That's a
Yes,
chain link
for the
fence.
pool.
They're looking to put it 5 foot off the Park Place right of way and then around the perimeter, the back of the property.
I'll pass this around because I don't think the drawing that we got shows the fence. So you guys just want to take a quick look at that. So it's going from basically the back of your house all the way around and then to the other back of the house on the other side.
On the other side, there's no problem with the approval.
Right. Okay, and Jay, again, question about the site triangle?
Mr. Chairman, not a concern with the site triangle. And as was indicated by the applicant, this is a dead-end street. Behind this property is a borough park.
Okay.
So people could come in, you don't drive into the park, you just park on the dead-end portion of the street. And also, I think across the street, residents have a similar fence to you have.
And just to get it on the record, Park Place is the dead end? Okay. All right, any members have a question about this fence?
Mr. Chairman, I was down there yesterday to look at this. And that dead end street, there's 4 stanchions there. And there's also a chain link where no cars can go down there at all. It's just a walkway for pedestrians to get into the park. And also on the other corner, adjacent to theirs, there's a fence exactly the same as what they want to put in.
Okay, thank you. Any other members have any comments or questions?
You said you approved, or you have a fence in already?
Yeah, on the side.
There, it's installed already?
No, no.
Oh, it's approved.
Because the main concern is that.
Understood. Okay.
They don't need.
That doesn't need a variance.
Right, and I didn't know if they had just stopped at that point, just to get some.
Okay, and John, just the one variance like last?
Yeah, just the one variance, and I also just have a question. You're not going to be cutting down any trees to install the fence, are you?
We're moving away from all the trees. That's why we're all the way.
The only tree we're gonna call right now is the one that is about to fall.
That's,
Yes, the dead tree already.
okay, thank you. Just wanted to make sure you weren't cutting the trees down to put the fence up.
Oh, no.
Cut it before the fence goes. Okay, last chance for any comments or questions. If not, I'm going to open it to the public. Anyone in the public wish to make a comment on this application, please come forward. Seeing no interest, I'm going to close the public portion. Can I have a motion on this application?
Make a motion to approve this application?
Motion's been made and seconded. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kaczynski.
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Dodson.
Yes.
Mr. Castlebrand.
Yes.
Mr. Bell.
Yes.
Okay, application's approved.
Thank you very much.
So if I don't,
Appreciate.
did you hear what happened last time? The attorney is gonna draw out the document. And we're gonna vote on that next meeting, September. And then once that's approved, then you can get your building permit.
Are we gonna be notified when it's?
You can talk to Andy about that.
done?
All right, the next application, the final one for tonight, 23-01 Spin Dock LLC Animal Hospital, 275 Oak Street.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board professionals, Lawrence Sachs on behalf of the applicant, Spin Dock LLC Animal Hospital. This is the property located at 257 Oak Street. It's Dr. Spinazzola's current office. And we're in front of you this evening seeking use variance, bulk variances, and preliminary and final site plan approval for what I consider to be a real interesting project. As many members of the board are familiar, presently there is the animal hospital that's there, and it's operated by Dr. Spinazzola. He's owned it since 2006. And I believe there's been an animal hospital there since the 1970s, but he's been there since 2006. At present, that site at 257 Oak Street, which is on the corner of Roll and Oak, contains the animal hospital. It also contained a tattoo parlor, which is gone, and it also contains three apartments as well. And there's a parking lot across the street on Oak Street, which technically is not part of this application, but we are going to be utilizing that for parking as well. And what Dr. Spinazzola is proposing is to build an entire brand new facility. He's going to run you through what it's going to look like. We'll go through the floor plan and he'll explain what each room will be. He'll explain his operations. So he'll be one of my witnesses. And I also have my professional engineer and planner, Mark Lieber of East Point Engineering, who will describe the existing conditions. He'll discuss what's being proposed, and he'll give the planning testimony. And of course, we'll address the memos that we received from Mr. Cornell and Mr. Barry as well. So that's essentially what we hope to accomplish tonight. And at this point, if I can have my first witness sworn in, Mr. Krenzel, that'll be Dr. Spinazzola.
Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will testify truthfully before the board?
I do.
Lower your hand. Please give your name, spell your last name, and tell us what.
My name is Dr. Joe Spinazzola, Spinazzola, and I am looking to open up a new veterinary hospital on Oak Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me ask you some questions, Dr. Spinazzola. During my introduction, I indicated that this facility has been there since the 1970s. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay, and you purchased it in 2006, and you've been operating it since then?
yes,
And you are the only veterinarian at that site?
yes,
All right. Now, you presently also have 3 apartments in that structure as well, 3
That's correct.
residential apartments. Those are going to be eliminated as a result of this application?
that's correct.
And there was also a tattoo parlor there, which is gone, but obviously that's going to be part of, that's not going to be there as part of this application as
That's
well.
correct.
All right. In terms of your hours of operation, is it fair to say that you operate Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Yes,
and 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on Saturday?
yes,
And you're closed on Sundays?
correct.
All right. And as a result of this expanded facility, you anticipate having approximately 10 employees
That's
on
correct.
staff? All right. And again, there'll only be 1 doctor on site at any given time.
That's correct.
You may actually hire another doctor, but of course, there'll only be 1 doctor there at any given time.
That's correct.
All right. All right. In terms of medical waste that's generated, how is that disposed of? Do you have a licensed state contractor who picks up medical waste?
Yes.
Okay. And how often does that occur?
That may happen maybe once every 2 months, every 3 months.
Okay. And that's picked up by a van and,
Bulk, that's right.
all right. And they just take it out. All right. And presently you have curbside pickup for your refuse
That's correct.
and for recyclables?
That's correct.
All right. And that's going to continue.
That's
Okay.
correct.
All right. And in terms of deliveries, you get some deliveries on site, I'm sure, but are they by UPS and FedEx truck?
Yes,
And again, they just stop on Oak,
that's
go through
correct.
the front door and then leave.
That's correct.
All right. All right. Let's do this, Dr. Spinazzola. Let's run the board through the architectural floor plans that were provided by your architect and I think the board should have it as part of the submission. And I just want to go through this floor plan so you can explain to the board what each of these rooms are. And Joan, it was part of the, I think everyone should have it. Everyone's got it. I see Mr. Kaczynski's got it. Okay. Yeah, it's a two-page exhibit. The first page is the elevation. The second page is the architectural plans. All right. So in terms of what this layout is going to encompass, you're going to have a total of 5 examination rooms,
That's correct.
and 3 of those will be dedicated for dogs and 2 for cats.
That's correct.
All right. You're also going to have 2 treatment areas, which are shown on the plans. What's the purpose of the treatment areas? What are they used for?
Treatment areas will be due to, we use those for repairs, laceration repairs, treating wounds, cleaning ears. Everything other than that will be done in the room.
Okay,
Vaccines,
so nothing major. It's all minor,
all
minor stuff. All
all
right.
minor work.
And treatment room 1 is going to be dedicated for cat treatment, and treatment room 2 is going to be for dogs.
That's correct.
All right. We also show on the plan a pharmacy, which is marked as an RX. Obviously, that's self-explanatory. Same thing with your lab. You're going to do lab work there as well, just like you do now.
That's correct.
And you have a designated lab. You also show an X-ray room on here.
Mhm.
That's going to be for X-rays,
That's correct.
obviously. The surgical room, why don't you describe to the board what the purpose of the surgical room is?
That's just routine surgeries,
Okay.
stays, neuters, and so on.
Okay. You also show on here a dental room. What is that going to be used
All
for?
dental procedures, cleaning teeth, and so on.
Okay. And you also show an acupuncture and comfort exam room. What is that?
Comfort room would be for humane euthanasia.
All right. And acupuncture, obviously self-explanatory. All right. You're going to have a reception area, an office, a coffee break room. Why don't you tell the board what the relief yard is, which is at the rear, the exterior of the property? What's the purpose of that?
Yeah, sure. The relief yard is an access from the treatment ward or the dog ward is where our sick patients will be. So they would be taken out one at a time instead of taking a sick dog across, the hospital. If it has any type of infectious disease, we could take it directly out back one at a time and bring it back into the cage.
Okay. And obviously they'll do whatever they need to do in the relief yard. And the dog ward is obviously for sick patients.
That's right.
Okay. And there's also a designated area here for a dog run. If you can explain what that is.
Yeah, there's a few of them. There's the runs in the sick ward, which is for larger breed dogs that won't fit in a cage. And then there are 2 runs that are by the surgical suite, which would be used as a recovery area for dogs coming out of anesthesia.
Okay. All right. So this is really a state-of-the-art facility. It's going to encompass all your needs. And anything else you want to add?
No,
Okay.
not at all.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I don't have any further questions regarding Dr. Spinizzola regarding operations or about the layout. Certainly is available for any questions. And I do have another witness who obviously will talk about the site and the planning aspects of it.
Okay, thank you. The dog runs, that's inside, totally inside?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay, I'm thinking of like 50 feet where the dog is on a leash or something and he can so it's nothing like that. It's all inside?
Well, it's inside with drainage systems and so
Okay,
on, so they can be
okay.
cleaned. Yeah.
All right. The dental, do you do the dentistry or
All
this?
dentistry. That's right.
Okay, so you don't have a specialist come in?
No, I
do
do
that?
all my dentistry.
Okay. And anesthesia, you do that also?
All my anesthesia. Yeah, I do
Okay,
everything.
so
I
there's
do
just
all
one,
that.
one doctor with some aid from nurses or
I have a
technicians?
technician who aids, who's with me during the anesthesia.
Okay, and also x-rays, the technician does that, or you do it?
All my technicians will do the x-rays. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Any boarding of animals overnight?
No boarding.
Okay. How many patients do you see during a normal day? Or-
I'd be still, like, calling back my lab work right now, but we go right to 7 o'clock and I see 15-minute appointments and I see them from, 8:15 till close. Do surgery in the afternoon and see patients from 4 to 7. So I'm fully booked at all times, sometimes double booked. So we're busy. I'm going to say 30, 40 patients a day.
Mr. Kaczynski, let me just ask one more question because I neglected to ask it. So you have the 5 treatment rooms. You're going to have, generally, you'll have one patient sitting, going into the next room at any given time.
My philosophy about how this hospital is going to work is very simple. My ideas would be to, whenever a client comes in, to get them into a room, get them away from the reception area because there's too much activity. So you get a client into the room, when it's 1 or 2 or 3, you find them all in a room away from other dogs and other pets. And then my idea is to go to each room and do what I have to do the second room, the third room, do the cats, and then the clients will be able to leave at that point. But the idea is just to keep the flow.
All right,
of
so
the
you're
hospital
not going to
going.
have a waiting room filled with pets is what
No,
it's
that's
going
not the idea.
to, and
right?
that you don't operate that in that fashion now.
No.
Okay.
We try to get them in the room.
Okay.
What about emergencies? So most of these appointments, I'm going to assume, are by appointment. So they have like 8:15 or 9:45 or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, people have to understand that they're emergencies and they come in and they take precedence. So when they come in, I get them into a room
Okay.
and I address those.
How often does that happen? One a day or one a week?
Oh, no, it happens. It can happen, every day. You get phone calls every day. People have sick pets and you got to make room for them and
Or injured?
you
pets?
adjust and you adapt and you make sure that you take care of their needs.
And so you mentioned cats and dogs. Are there other pets that you treat?
No, that's it.
Just cats and dogs?
Yeah.
Okay. So no big animals or?
Stay
anything
away
like
from them.
that? Okay. Okay. All right, that's it for me for now. Any other questions from board members?
Yes, I have one. When a patient comes to your place and they have an appointment, say at 8 o'clock, and it's just a routine thing, how long would you say it is before they leave? 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
Yeah, it depends upon the case. It's a routine vaccine. It's 15 minutes and that's pretty much it. If it's a
So
sick-
what it is they arrive and they park their car, they see you 15, maybe 20 minutes,
That's it.
and then they leave, and
That's
then
correct.
it's just a revolving
That's
situation.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Doctor, would you take emergencies on a Sunday even though you're off? Is that?
My phone is available all day. That means if you have an emergency, you leave a message. And by law, I have to state on that message that if I do not call you back within 15 minutes, you need to call an emergency facility and I leave that information. But yeah, we do. If someone has an emergency and I need to go in, I'll go in. Yeah,
Were there any dogs or cats where they're sick where you kind of need to stay with them for a long time? And I'm just thinking of a person going into a hospital and they're being monitored, for days.
Yeah.
So is it the same with the dog or
Yeah, sure. It's
cat?
a great question. And over the years, what to keep and what will be sent home that day and which ones need to be referred to a 24-hour facility.
Okay.
So if I get a sense that this patient needs to be, sent to an emergency facility for a 24-hour care, that's what I do.
Okay, so you don't do that. So you just would monitor it for a couple hours or so
I'll
and then,
hospital it for the day, knowing that it's going to go home at night.
okay.
So I have one question, and it's, I don't know if it's related so much, but it's from a cost benefit analysis, if you're not adding more doctors, it's a heck of a project. How, so if you're just housing dogs versus the sitting room, right? From a business perspective, where are you making money here? I don't want to know I do want to know your business. Yeah.
I am probably the largest single veterinary practice around. I see myself as a different person, be perfectly honest with you. I'm very motivated what I do. I love what I do. And this model on how it works was taught to me when I got out of school. And it's not about how hard I work. It's about empowering people to do the work and then get to the next one. So you have to understand that model, when you empower someone like my technicians who are trained to do certain things, you answer the patient's questions, you get to the point, you make sure that they're okay with everything, and you move on. And so I'm very comfortable with that. And so my idea is to make more space. I've been working in this place since 2006, and it's over my shoulders. I need to breathe. I need to have a better work environment for me and for my staff. So it'll work. I don't have a problem with that. And it's just a matter of making sure that things move smoothly. People come in, everything is addressed, and do the next one. It's about just time and time management. There are hiccups along the way, and you're going to have to hospitalize, and people are going to have to wait.
Sure, always,
But yeah,
absolutely.
but that's a good question.
Thank you. No, I appreciate the answer.
Yeah.
Chairman?
Mr. Green?
The tattoo parlor, at one time, you had the building on the left and the top and the tattoo parlor was open on the right, correct?
That's correct.
Now that place is closed now, correct?
That's right.
And what you want to do is you want to first take the tattoo parlor down and demolish that side and build it, the new place. And then after that's all set, go to the other side. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, and Mr. Green, our engineer will give the phasing of all that. Yeah,
Okay, but
he'll cover that.
that's the plan
Yes,
that you want to do it that way.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
All these lots and properties are owned by one person? So one
Dr. Spinizzola owns it, yes.
owns them all. The employees that you have, how many employees will you have, including yourself?
Yeah, we have around 10.
10?
Yeah.
All at the same time? I mean, 10?
They rotate in.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how many are like,
If you have two front desk, a technician. Right now I have 2 technicians in the room, 2 front desk, and my office manager. So that's 5. And then.
expand a
and then
little bit with this? Are you going to expand with this in terms of
I think
employees?
the expectation is to have approximately 10 there once.
At one time?
Yeah, I mean, that would be the maximum, most likely, yeah.
Okay.
And I think Mr. Lieber will go over that in terms of his parking. He did some parking analysis on that. So,
This all has to do with parking, number of employees.
Yeah, it's.
Yeah. Okay, so 10,
Yeah.
we'll call it 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any other board members have questions? Interesting project?
I have a question.
Sure.
Technical. Who's the applicant?
well, Dr. Spinizzola is the member of the LLC. So it's SpinDoc LLC is the applicant, but he's the member of that LLC, probably the only managing member, sole member.
It's on the application that the doctor himself is the applicant, but
Yeah.
put it down as Spin Doctor.
That's fine.
Just a quick question. You're closed on Sunday, but if there was an emergency, you would open up for that.
I would go in, it depends on the emergency. So I take the call. And if it's something that would need to be managed by a 24-hour facility, they get referred. If it's something that could wait, then I just tell them, call in the morning. Will I ever go in? I used to do it all the time. I'm tired of going in. So, especially at 2 o'clock in the morning when the phone rings, but I will give advice. And if I feel that it's got to be referred, it gets referred. And if I feel that, look, even if I'm in the area or I'm at the hospital, because sometimes I'm just doing paperwork and someone calls me and I'm there, I'll see them. That's my job. So, yeah.
Can you describe what the medical waste is?
Yeah, it's syringes, needles,
Any body
vaccine
part?
bottles,
Body parts? Or
can be body parts. Everything's wrapped up and disposed of properly. Yeah,
okay. And is that stored indoors until it's picked up?
it is.
Okay, all right.
Excuse me, how do you plan on keeping everything running if construction does occur?
What was that question again? I'm sorry.
How do you plan on keeping everything running, the hospital running?
As it is right now?
As it is right now, if it's under construction?
It will be next door. It's going to be on the property next door. So the tattoo parlor is next door. My property, where the hospital where it is now, has nothing to do with that side. That tattoo parlor gets taken down and the build is on that piece of property. This is a separate piece of property. So I'll work until that's done. And my plan is to, when it's done, then finish the project, move into my hospital work and then finish the project.
Engineer will get into more details on that.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, any other members for the doctor? No? John?
Good evening, Doctor. Just one question. Do you require today, or do you plan to require that your employees park in the lot across the street? Is that the operation?
They do that now.
Okay.
That's the plan, that parking should be for them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the idea would be for your customers, patients, to arrive and be able to park closer to the building entrance.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
That's it, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chairman.
you, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, my next witness is Mark Lieber, who is a professional engineer and planner. So if we can get him sworn in and I'll get him qualified.
Right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will testify truthfully before this board?
Yes, I do.
Lower your hand. Please give your name, spell your name, and give us your bona fides.
Hi, good evening. It's Mark with the C, Lieber, L-E-B-E-R. I'm with East Point Engineering. Our office is in Marlboro. I have testified before this board
So
previously.
I'll certify that you're qualified, but you were here last time, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Okay, Mr. Lieber, if you can give the board the benefit of your testimony as to existing conditions, what's being proposed, and then if you can get into the site engineering issues on that, and then we'll eventually get into the planning, but we'll do that afterwards.
Sure. I have two exhibits I just want to pass out. One is a bunch of photos I took in July, and the other one is a copy of sheet 5 of the plans that you have on file. I just added a little bit of color for a little artistic impression. I'll give you the photo book first and the color rendering second.
All right, so Mr. Krenzel, maybe we'll mark the photos as A1, and we'll do the colorized rendering of the site plan as A2.
So we have some extras. If anybody in the audience and the public wants to look at what we're looking at, we have some extras, so you can come forward. Anybody, we have one of this second one too. We have one more, if you want to look at it.
I gave him one.
This is a different one.
No, that's the one I gave him.
No.
Okay, I just want to start off with a little bit of background information. You already heard it's 257 to 261 Oak Street. It's a corner lot. It's on the corner of Oak and Roll Avenue. And there are two buildings on the property. On the corner, you have the veterinary hospital, which also has an apartment inside. And to the right of that, you have the former tattoo/commercial building. Beyond that, there's another parking lot. Tax-wise, the designation is block 302. It's lots 1 to 5, 52.01 and 5202. The total lot area there is 13,106 square feet. Now, there is an additional property across Oak Street, and that's block 29302, lots 12 to 16. That's a 5,335 square foot lot that is just utilized as a parking lot. There's no changes proposed on that property. So the application tonight is really pertaining to the lot with the buildings on it and not the parking lot. Right now, our site is about 81.5% impervious, meaning it's covered with either roofs or parking areas or walkways that are not pervious. And in the zone, which is the R7 single family residential zone, we're only permitted 45% lot coverage. So that's a existing nonconformity. There are actually other nonconformities out there today, which pertain to building setbacks, building coverage, and parking. Most of those are going to be removed. However, with our proposed plan, we are asking for some variance relief, which I'm going to get into detail in a few minutes. Now, surrounding the property, there's a variety of uses. Immediately to the west, you have primarily single-family dwellings. Across Roll Avenue is the firehouse. And then across Oak Street, aside from the applicant's parking lot, you have a few dwellings, but primarily you have the highway, which is 935. The use of this property right now is technically non-conforming in the zone. But I looked through some old photographs and it appears that the property has been used for commercial purposes since the 1940s. And as you heard earlier, that there's been a veterinary practice, albeit under another ownership, operating here since the 1970s. I want to go to A1 here, which is the photos. The first page, that's just an aerial map that I had grabbed off of Google. I outlined the property in red. If you look directly across Oak Street, you'll see a parking lot. That's that other property that is also owned by the applicant, but we're not doing anything there. So if you look to the left, you see the firehouse. If you look to the top of the page, you see the single-family dwellings. If you look to the right, you have Kearney Avenue, which is a residential area, and then obviously along the bottom, the highway. Going to the next page. So we'll start with the basics. This is a photo looking at the property. You see on the corner, there's a sign on the building for the animal hospital. You can see just beyond that, the apartment in the distance and the dormer on the roof. And then next to that is a kind of a brick building, a little reddish in color. That's the other commercial building where the tattoo parlor was located. And on the left of that photo, you're looking down Roll Avenue. And of course, if you're looking to the right, you see the highway in the distance, which is Oak Street. The next photo on the bottom is across Roll Avenue. I'm just looking back at the property. You'll notice, and one of the things we'll talk about is how trash is handled here. You'll notice it's curbside. There's a couple of receptacles on the curb. That would remain a similar setup in the proposed condition. On the far left of the photo, you'll see a single-family dwelling, which is our neighbor on Roll Avenue. Going to the next page, top photo. This photo shows the parking lot that's across the street. You'll notice in the foreground, there's a freestanding sign, which we do propose to outfit with new artwork and modernize with the logo and the name of the hospital. On the bottom, that's what the parking lot looks like today from the animal hospital's view. It's pretty well maintained. It has ample lighting and the access to that lot is off of Oak Street. Moving on one more page. This is the parking lot that's behind the animal hospital on Roll Avenue. There's a depressed curb here with a driveway. There's a couple of spaces in the back. There's a retaining wall, you'll notice, due to the drop in grade on that street. And then the bottom photo shows pretty much what the back of the building looks like. There's an entrance there with a stoop. In the distance, you'll see another door that goes into the apartment in the distance. I'm going to go on to the next page. I just took this shot to show you that Oak Street is clear and straight with no site obstructions. The bottom photo is the second parking lot, which is to the right of the tattoo building. That lot is in somewhat disrepair. I noticed that the light pole was down, the asphalt's not in great shape, it's a little overgrown. Possibly because the building's been vacant about 2 years, so there hasn't been much use of that lot. The last page, again, an overall view. I'm standing in the parking lot across Oak Street, just looking back into the property at the two buildings. The parking lot that we just discussed is on the right. There's a car parked in that lot. And then if you look further right, you'll see our neighbor on Oak Street on the corner of Kearney, a single-family residence. And then the last picture is, this is our neighbor's house on Roll Avenue. You'll see that retaining wall here that holds up the existing parking lot. Some kind of drainage structure in the sidewalk. And you'll see in the distance, the back of the existing animal hospital and the apartment. So these were taken last month. This is still what the property looks like today. There haven't been any changes whatsoever. And now I want to go over to A2, which is the coloring of sheet 5. Just to talk about the proposal here. Now, before we obviously had this plan reviewed, we did submit a plan initially to the board, which we had some comments on. We had met with the board's professionals. I gather that would be a technical review meeting. We did reduce the size of the building. We made a couple of changes to the site. So the plan that's before you tonight is the improved new plan that was submitted back in May as a result of the technical meeting. So first and foremost, we're going to demolish both buildings on the property and both parking lots as well. There is a proposed footprint of the new animal hospital, which is outlined in red here. That's 5,106 square feet. It's a single-story building. There's no basement. And we positioned that building to be on the northerly property line. This way, we were able to keep our parking along the street and remove it from being in the neighbor's backyard, which it is presently. Now, additionally, the driveway access from Roll Avenue is going to be eliminated. So there'll no longer be access on the side street. We have a new two-way access off Oak Street. And as you saw in the photos, there's a large grade change on Roll Avenue. So we have a small retaining wall to help us, attenuate that grade change so that our parking lot could be rather level. This plan shows parking for 11 cars. There's also parking for 11 cars across the street for a total of 22 off-street spaces. Now, I looked through the ordinance and it indicates that for this type of use, the requirement is only actually 5 spaces per doctor. Having only one doctor here, it seems that there's only 5 spaces required. However, I think we can all agree that seems to be a little bit of a light requirement for a veterinary hospital. So I looked at in other industry standards. One was the parking generation manual, which is published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers. And they indicate that the parking requirement would be 2.3 spaces per 1,000 square feet of floor area, plus 2 per employee. Now, although you heard there could be 10 employees, but they're not all there at the same time, I just assumed they were all there at the same time. And it came up that the requirement is 33 required spaces. And we're providing 22. One thing that is not accommodated in that calculation is the possibility of both pedestrian customers, because we are at the edge of the neighborhood here. And in addition, I further analyzed that in my parking analysis report. And I stated that assuming all exam rooms are filled, which there's 5 exam rooms, and an additional patient is waiting for each of those 5 exam rooms, that would be 10 possible cars waiting. Then on top of that, you have the 10 employees, which again, although they're not scheduled at the same time, I assume they were, that'd be another 10 cars potentially, assuming nobody is coming by foot or bicycle or bus. Now, of course, adding a spot for the doctor, I'm coming up with about 21 potential spaces on the property. And again, we provide 22. And it's more important to me that I think that the parking is adequate for the use, as the doctor is familiar with that use because the use presently exists on the property. So I really don't have concerns that we're short on parking, although we're not asking for a parking variance. I just want to have a practical standard to compare it to so that the board's comfortable that we have enough parking. Now, the other thing I want to touch upon are some of the variances that were requested. First of all, you have front yard setback. It's a residential zone. It requires 20 feet. Now, the existing building that's on the property today has a 0-foot setback. We're also requesting 0 foot for the proposed. And where that is that's along Oak. So if you look at Oak Street, our building is really set on the right-of-way line, which is similar to the way it is today, except instead of being right on the corner, we're bringing it back so that we could fit our parking along Roll Avenue. So we're asking for a 0-foot front yard setback. When I had done my zoning analysis, I looked at the lot lines at the top of this page and on the right of this page as both being side yards. But it's been clarified to me that, in fact, we only have one side yard and the other is a rear yard. So for our side yard setback, which is to the right, we have a 7-foot setback proposed where 8's required. And for our rear yard setback, which would be at the top of this page, we're required to have 25 feet and we're asking for 7.11 feet. Building coverage, again, being a residential zone, you would expect to find a low building coverage standard, which it is 20%, and we're asking for 39%. And finally, the lot coverage, again, it's a residential zone. You would not expect to find a high lot coverage requirement. Those are more appropriate in commercial zones. So the limit here is 45%, and we're asking for 82.3%. Again, the existing lot coverage is 81.5%. It's a very, very minor increase in lot coverage. One of the requirements, because we are surrounded by residential homes, is that we provide a 50-foot landscape buffer. It's not easy to comply with that. It would make development of the property more or less infeasible. So we're providing a 5-foot buffer, which is done through a combination of plantings and fencing. There is a standard for this type of use to provide one loading space. We're not providing a designated loading space. This property doesn't accept tractor trailers. Most of the deliveries are done similar to the way a delivery would be handled for residents on the street. They usually just park on the side of the road, bring in whatever the package is, and then they're on their way. So we do not have a loading space proposed. A couple of sign things I wanted to point out. It is a residential zone, and sign standards for residential zones are generally not spelled out. So our freestanding sign that you saw across the street is 32 square feet. Limit for that type of sign is 24 square feet. So we're asking for a slightly larger sign than is permitted, as well as with the height. The height limit's 8 feet. We're asking for 15.67 feet. The wall-mounted signs on the building, there's 3 sides of the building that have wall-mounted signs. Being that it's in a residential zone, you're not allowed to have a wall-mounted sign, but we're proposing 3 of them. So that requires relief as well. And I'm going to get into the areas of those signs. If you look at the architectural plan, actually, that's not the plan to look at. The plan to look at is actually sheet 10 of the site plan set, and that's entitled signage plan. So we have on the north elevation, a 31.5 square foot identification sign where 8 square feet is allowed. On the south elevation, which faces Roll Avenue, there's a 46 square foot wall sign. Again, 8 square feet is the limit. And then on the east elevation, which faces Oak Street, the sign is 56.3 square feet. Again, 8 square feet is the limit, it is a residential zone. So we are asking for relief on the signage as well. And then getting into the finer details of the plan. We're going to provide all new utilities for the building. That includes public water, sewer, gas, and electric. Our parking lot's going to be outfitted with LED lighting. All of that lighting is able to be done through building mounted fixtures. We do not need any pole mounted lighting. And then we did submit a landscape plan, which provides for landscaping along the perimeter. We do have a street tree along Roll Avenue and some shrubs. It is a tight property. I know there were some comments about adding additional street trees. I, first of all, noticed that there aren't many street trees at all in this area, especially on Oak Street, but the only opportunity we have to add street trees is if we could do more or less cutouts on the sidewalk where we could plant some trees, you know, to dress up the front of the property. And I would entirely leave that up to the board. There is one concern that I do have with doing that, which is that we are surrounded by overhead wires on both streets. So if there was a desire to have some trees on either of those frontages, we'd have to be very careful so that we don't impact the overhead wires. And it's possible that that's why there's no trees over there today. Are there any questions yet?
You know, Mr. Lieber, before you get in, I'm assuming you're going to get into planning next, right?
I wanted to look through the letter from CME first.
Okay, all right. All right, let's do that then, because I was going to,
Before we get into the engineer's report, I just want to talk a little bit about the parking lot across the street. Because I think, Mr. Sachs, you indicated that it was not part of the application.
well, there's no improvements made to that. That's correct, Jay.
There's no improvements, but you are relying on that property.
Yes, we
So-
are.
So it really needs to be tied into this application where you're not able to sell that in the future. It's got to be tied with this application.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that that's clear.
And that can be a condition, Jay. I don't have an issue with that at all. Yeah, and I know there was a comment about maybe limiting that parking lot to employees. Certainly, we can do that. We can have the employees there, but certainly we could have patients or, you know, pet owners park there as well if there's enough parking.
There was a concern about pedestrian traffic back and forth across the
Mhm.
street. So if employees are parking across the street, that is a lesser number of movements across the street. So I think that's probably a better way to do it.
Okay,
But I just wanted to make sure that if this application is approved, that a lot across the street stays and you can't sell it for,
No,
and then you have parking issues.
then we have a parking issue. I agree. And then that can be a condition.
Thank you.
Okay.
But may I just, to that same extent, just so we're buttoning everything up, whether it is or isn't, the sign is located today on the lot across the street. So it's advertising a business that's not actually located on that lot. So to the extent that we need to address relief for that, so there's no confusion in the future, perhaps we could do that.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, why don't we do this, Mr. Lee, right? We can go through Mr. Cornell's report on the engineering.
Yeah.
We can also go through Mr. Barry's report. But let's just make sure on the record, at least, we have the requested waivers here. So if I go to Mr. Cornell's report on page, I guess on page 2. So paragraph 2, we're requesting a waiver, and I think you commented on this. We're requesting a waiver for parking in the front yard setback area.
That's right.
Okay.
yes.
And then in paragraph 4 of that report, we're also requesting a waiver sidewalk throughout the site, the interior sidewalks. Is that correct?
Right. We have, I mean, we're surrounded by sidewalk on the 2 streets. And then we have a sidewalk along the front of the building that channels people into the front door. But I think there's another requirement for sidewalks throughout the whole site, which we would need a waiver.
Okay. And then in paragraph 5, we're seeking a waiver of the off-street loading berth. I think you commented on that.
Yes.
And moving on page.
Mr. Chairman, are you going to go through all the items or are you just?
I
gonna
am.
talk
I
about
just
the
wanted to
waivers?
get the
Okay.
waivers. Yeah,
That's
that's fine. Yeah, and I'll go back, Jay. I guess going to the landscaping and lighting, there's a number of waivers that we're seeking there. In paragraph E3, the lighting intensity at 0.50 foot candles, we're requesting a waiver of that. Or is that something you might be able to meet?
I think I could tweak that. The way that the lighting model was done, the lighting levels cut off at the edge of the parking lot. So I think when I overlay all the lighting levels that go out into the street, if there's any areas that are either short or over, I can adjust that through the angle of the LEDs or also the height of the fixture. So I'm going to try and comply with that.
Okay. All right. E4, we're requesting a waiver of 20% of the site will consist of landscaping, 5% of the required landscaped areas along the right of ways. We're requesting a waiver of that. And I think your testimony was we really have limited area to put any additional landscaping. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Same thing with E5 also deals with landscaping, a minimum of 10% in the interior parking lot. We're requesting a waiver of that.
Right. So I want to explain a little bit about the landscaping for a second. There's no trees on this property. And the way the code's written is you have to plant 1 tree for every 2 parking spaces. So with the 11 spaces proposed, we really have to provide for 6 new trees. Now, we're proposing 16 trees. Some of those are evergreens, but only one is a street tree. So although we are not generating a tree replacement requirement because we're not removing any trees, we're generating a tree planting requirement because of the parking spaces that are proposed. One of the unfortunate things about laying out a parking lot is a parking space can only be X by X dimension, X by Y, and then the aisle has to be a fixed 24 feet. Like I can't reduce the size of a parking spot to make room for more trees. The only thing I could do is I could plant the trees, as I stated earlier, in the boroughs right away, but we have to be careful with the wires above. And, you know, I'm not crazy about doing it. And I think that's why there's no trees on the street now.
All right. And E6 is also a waiver for the 50-foot vegetated buffer that we spoke about.
Yes.
Okay. And just a few more. F3 is a waiver for the one-way driveway in non-residential areas, 30 foot in width.
That's correct.
Okay.
And we provide what I would imagine is a standard width for a 2-way driveway for parking, which is 24 as compared to a 30-foot requirement.
All right. And then the last waiver is F4, which is street intersection. A driveway should be set back 50 feet from street intersection. And I guess, again, I think you described where the entrance will now be on Oak Street, whereas before it was on the residential street of Roll Avenue. So again, we can't accomplish that as well.
Right. I just want to go to the plans for a second. So the property has 120 feet of frontage on Oak Street. If we had to abide by the 50-foot, like a separation, so to say, from the intersection, it puts our driveway where the tattoo place is. Now,
Not feasible then.
it's not because, and you know, this goes back to kind of like the phasing plan. One of the parameters that we were instructed to work within when we started this project was how do we keep the existing use in operation and construct a new facility? Because the only alternative to that would be to bring in a bunch of portable trailers and have them combined to form like a temporary veterinary hospital, which is extremely costly and requires other permitting nightmares, including water connections, sewer connections, come into a hearing, and, you know, that's just for a temporary structure. So the driveway onto Oak Street really ended up being where it ended up being. We established where the building would be. The floor plan was designed by the architect, taking into account what is really required to have a modern veterinary hospital. And it was actually scaled back from the original submission. So once you have your building, then we provide the sidewalk, then you provide your drive aisle and your parking. And that's how it was laid out. So really where that driveway falls is, you know, the result of the planning. Do I think it's an issue? This is not a very busy street. This is not a very busy area. So I don't particularly have a concern with that waiver.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to the beginning of the CME report. And I think, Mr. Cornell, we could comply with mostly everything else. I'll just go through it real
There's a
quick.
few that I think we need to talk
Yeah,
about.
and we
Yeah.
can do that. First of all, A1, we do have a letter of exemption from Middlesex County Planning Board. Is that correct?
It is. I think it's dated March.
All right, and we'll provide that to the board. The tree preservation permit, we're not dealing with any trees on this property. Is that correct?
No tree removal.
Okay,
But just to clarify, you do have to comply because of the parking space that you mentioned, so you will have to get that permit.
okay. The soil fill permit, can you comment on that?
Yeah, we had done a statement. I'll check on my phone.
Just to help you, if it's more than 500 yards in or more than 500 yards out, you have to get a permit. If it's less
Fine.
than that, then you don't need it.
We agree.
And there's a comment about soil erosion and sediment control.
Yes, that's required.
Okay, and NJDEP construction activity, stormwater general permit, we're not disturbing more than a quarter acre.
Yeah, it's a 1 acre cutoff, so we wouldn't need the permit.
Okay. All right, I think we commented on A2, A3. I know Dr. Spinizzola commented on the floor plan. I think if you look at the first sheet of the architecturals, you'll see what really is a very attractive building. And I think the materials are there as well. So I think we've addressed that. 4 was a waiver request, 5 was a waiver request. Mr. Lieber, we can do a deed of lot consolidation. That's not a problem.
Correct.
Okay. I think we touched on the method of solid waste disposal.
With regard to number 7,
Yes.
I think the picture showed 4 or 5 bins on the side street. Where are those bins located during the day?
We could put them back on the top of that plan, Exhibit A2, which would be near the,
If you're not going to have a garbage dumpster, you may need to have some place to store the bins. so
Like a
they're-
corral?
They're screens, so.
yeah, that'd be fine. Like a trash corral.
Yeah, we could do that at the rear of the property.
That's fine. You can just-
Okay, that's fine. We'll show that
In
on the
condition,
plan.
yeah.
Yep, we'll do that for you, Jay. Okay, A8 deals with the emergency generator. Jay, we looked into this and I believe we can put some type of an enclosure around that, which will really muffle the noise.
I know there are enclosures, there's high grade mufflers, there are different things you can do to try to cut down the noise. So because of the proximity to the adjacent residential house, you probably should do something with that.
We will do that. Okay.
What type of generator is it going to be?
Uh,
Diesel?
gas.
Diesel, gas?
Yes,
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
All right, let's see. B deals with water distribution. All
I reached out to the architect for that calculation.
right, we'll provide that. C is storm sewer system. I think we didn't quite understand the comment, but I think we understand it now.
Everything drains to the rear corner and goes through a yard, kind of a yard drain out to the street. If there's a way that you can kind of redirect the roof drains at different locations as opposed to one concentrated location in the rear, I think that would help.
Okay, we can do that. D, paragraphs 1 and 2, we'll revise the plans to reflect those corrections. E, landscaping and lighting. 1 is certainly not a problem. We'll provide those calculations. 2, I guess, I think Mr. Lieber's indicated putting some street trees may have some impact on those overhead wires. So,
I think that's understood, and that's the reason street trees are being pushed kind of to the front yards now on residential houses. You don't have the ability to do that. But I think the biggest concern from that section E is the Roll Avenue side of the property, where you're going to have cars at a higher elevation, shining lights across the streets onto the residential properties. You have some buffering on your retaining wall, but there's a gap along the side of the property. So I don't know if something else can be done in there, whether it's a fence or something.
What would you feel about a 3-foot fence? Something that's just low enough to add some character to the streetscape, but not, imposing like.
Sorry, I know I think had similar concerns. Are you okay with something like that?
I think that's probably reasonable with the 3 foot on top of the retaining wall, because I don't think we have enough room for any realistic landscaping in there. And I think with the grade of the site, the landscaping may not help, though.
You're not looking for a 6 foot. You really want to hide the car lights from shining across the street. So if it's a low fence, I think that may solve that for you. And I
The good news is the only thing across the street is the firehouse.
I understand. You still
Okay,
have
okay.
cars driving up and down Oak Street that
Yes,
could be looking at it.
Okay.
understood.
Yeah, and I guess that's paragraph 7. So we'll, that addresses that. 3, 4, 5, and 6 were the waiver requests we went through before. Going over to F, I think we've covered the operations in paragraph 1. I think we covered deliveries and refuse pickup in paragraph 2. 3 and 4 were waivers. I think Mark covered that. I don't think we got a letter from the fire official, but certainly we'll reach out to them. All right. And paragraph 6 is fine. We'll revise the detail. And I think that's Jay's report. And John, let me just go through yours real quickly before we spend a few minutes on planning. Let me just look at it real quickly.
Got a couple of waivers.
I got a few, Larry, if you want, I was keeping track. There's only a handful left
Sure.
after addressing
Absolutely.
Jay's report. Couple of them are architecture related. I'm not sure to what extent we'll get testimony, but do you know anything about the location of the building's HVAC equipment?
Rooftop.
Okay, and it'll be screened in
Screened.
some way?
Yep.
Okay, great. And utility meter location on the building, will they be front and center? Will they be in some way kind of blended into the design?
So actually, the only meter that might be visible is the gas meter. I might have had it in a photo today that the gas meter is visible today on the side of the building, but the other utilities are coming in off a roll. So they could be more concealed in the back, but I think the gas meter is going to be on the front of this building facing Oak Street.
And to the extent it can be screened with some kind of architectural feature, great. If the gas company may dictate, so we don't want to hold you up if they say you can't do it, but to the extent that it's possible. And then the other, let's see, the fencing, I see the PVC fence detail shown on the plan that is indicated around the property line. Is that the same fence around the dog relief area? I didn't see a separate detail.
I think it is.
It's the fence would go around the property line, but then the dog relief would have an additional cutoff perpendicular to the building to limit the dog area to that small L.
Right, and would that be the same style fence? It would
Same
be.
style.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. With the, could you provide information about the existing lighting across the street? Not necessarily right now, or but just so we can confirm that there's adequate lighting for safety purposes at that lot?
Sure.
I see the floods in the photo.
Yeah, I was gonna point to the pictures. There's a pole in the middle, but I'll try and get, we could do some readings if that would be okay.
I think maybe that would be a good idea, just to confirm that there's adequate lighting at that location. I think that's everything from the letter.
Chairman, I have one more item if Barry's finished.
Yeah.
I think we need to talk about the phasing in a little more detail. And I don't know if you're going to get to that, but I think the concern is going to be the time frame when when both buildings are up and you don't have a parking lot. You're knocking down the one and you're building the other. There probably should be some type of time frame that once your new building is up, you have a certain amount of time to demolish the old and build a parking lot. We don't want to see that, go on for a year.
Yep. In fact, maybe what we can do is maybe we can we'll provide a written phasing plan, maybe for your review. Does that make sense? And then at least we'll put some time parameters in there.
Because really, you're only going to have half the parking
Correct.
until the new parking lot is built. So
That's
we want
correct.
to try to minimize the time that you don't have the required
Yep.
parking.
All right. So we'll get you, we will submit a written phasing plan and we'll submit it to both you and John.
So to follow up and so that I understand, was the intention to construct a building and get it all the way to a CO prior to doing the demolition work and site work on the other half of the site? That's the applicant's intention?
Yeah.
Okay. So I agree that we do need to figure out how to keep,
What'll
address the
happen,
issue.
when CO is issued, you're going to have to probably post a bond for that parking lot to
Mhm.
guarantee that it's done.
Right.
And there should be some type of time frame that's tied in with
All right.
the CO and how long you'll have it before the lot's completed.
That's fine. Okay.
How long do you anticipate?
That's what I was asking, about 9 months to construct the building.
9 months, okay.
Okay.
So
Demolish the second building and create the parking lot? You had a couple more months or?
Probably.
You'll still have the parking behind the existing vet center to
Correct.
utilize. So
Right,
you'll
we
have
s-
across the street plus behind initially.
Right.
While you're building where the tattoo parlor is. But once you're starting the demo work, then you're not going to have any parking,
Right.
just the 11 across the street.
Yeah, we're probably going to lose a few parking spaces for a very short period of time. Yeah, that's it. But once we get the new parking lot in, obviously we'll be back up to snuff. So, but we'll provide you with a plan so at least the borough is aware of what's going on. Okay.
It might be helpful also if Mr. Lieber knows and can provide some testimony about the availability and regulations related to on-street parking in the area and utilization thereof.
yeah, it's permitted, on streets permitted. You know, the reality is that when there's construction going on, there's going to be people parking on the street anyway, because they're going to be working on the property. But, you know, it's just for a time period during construction. It's not a permanent ask, so to say.
Got anything else, or did we cover everything?
No, that's all for now. Thanks.
Okay, good. Okay,
I have a couple of things that came up. Okay.
sure.
The dog relief area. Let's have some more detail on that.
It's a turf type material, which has some gravel underneath, so it's porous. It gets hosed down, just a regular garden hose. And then, you know, things that could be picked up are picked up, so to say.
The dogs will be let outside, right?
A single
dog.
pet, a single
One
pet.
dog.
One dog.
I'm concerned about a lot of things. One of them is barking and noise. So if there was more than one, it'd be worse.
The
Right, they-
facility, I understand the question because I've worked on many doggy daycare places, but this is not a daycare facility.
Okay.
These are for injured dogs or dogs that are recovering that just have to go outside.
Mhm.
So it's not a social,
I'm concerned
Yeah.
about the neighbors getting barking
Yeah,
constantly.
that's why we were limited to one dog.
One dog, okay.
And believe me, we don't want the dog out there for a long period of time.
Okay.
There are dog runs inside as well. So really, I think as a doctor explained to me, it's often for a dog that's maybe had surgery or a procedure, recovering for relief, get some fresh air, and then get back into the building. So it's not going to be like, and I'm sure this board has seen some of the doggy daycare where you have these very large relief areas where dogs are outside, quite frequently. That's not going to be the MO here. I mean,
It's
really,
also just that it's very close to the neighbor.
yes, we understand.
And so we have two noisemakers, the generator, which is probably going to be tested every week.
2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks, okay. The nearest house is about 30 feet away and you're high, you're about 5 or 6 feet or higher. So that's going to really project. So I think we really have to kind of noise proof that as much as possible.
Yeah, that's what I think we'll do. Quite frankly, if it turns out that the decibel readings are still much too high, even after we noise proof it, we could consider some other option there. But I think Mr. Lieber did investigate some muffling equipment that goes around it, and that really does reduce the noise. So,
The same thing with the HVAC on the roof, which is constantly going to be running. So
we're going to have that screened.
well, screened and also noise abated,
If there's anything we can, sure.
because that's going to be really high compared to that downhill on Roll Avenue.
Yeah, and there are also attenuation devices that can, maybe that's the wrong term, maybe
No,
attenuation.
that's, you're right.
All
you're
right,
right.
maybe it is attenuation where we can reduce the noise level.
Okay, so we'll make that part of the,
That's fine, Mr. Chairman.
thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else have anything at this point since we're in the middle of questions?
I have one.
Okay,
the demolition of the tattoo parlor first. Is my understanding, you're saying that the start to the demolition and get the new one up is approximately 9 months
Yes,
from start to finish?
yes,
And then after the 9 months is over, then the demolition of the other section will start?
right. And then they'll construct the parking.
Okay. So what is your time span for the entire project being done? 20 months, 18 months?
We start tomorrow.
I can't see it being long, but to knock down a building for a parking lot, I don't, 2 months, so
No, what I meant is.
Start to finish.
Start to finish, yes,
10 months.
10 months.
That usually hospitals take around 8 months to build. So if we're looking at an extra, I'm gonna say 10 months.
That's probably in a perfect world. It may take a little bit longer, but certainly
You're saying 10 months will look like this.
it will.
It's a single-story building and there's no basement.
Okay, that was my question. Thanks for the answer.
Mr. Chairman, if there's no more questions, I'm going to have Mr. Lieber finish up with his planning testimony because we do need use variance relief and some bulk variances. So Mr. Lieber, I'll throw it to you.
Change your hats.
Change your
Yeah,
hat. And he is a licensed,
I think I'm a
he
better
is a
engineer.
licensed professional planner in addition to an engineer. So
This is like a weird kind of a unique situation because we're asking for a use variance for a use that's already operating on the site. So it's a little unusual. I mean, but for the purposes of, what we have to provide tonight, we really have to address all the requirements. So the special reasons requirements, the site suitability question, as well as the negative criteria. And I'm sure you want to hear about the positives of the property project itself. So first and foremost, to me, the most important thing presenting a project is what are you going to see when you drive by this property? So aesthetically, what's going to look like to the neighbors? And two, are you creating a nuisance? Because nuisances present incompatibilities and planning is mostly about compatibility. So I don't think there's any debate as to whether or not this is an attractive looking building. It's a huge improvement over what's there today. On top of the fact that we're eliminating 2 other uses that are secondary. One was a retail/commercial store, as well as an apartment. So it could be argued that that would be a reduction of, an intensity on the property, being that there's 3 independent uses there where we're just really going to consolidate it into one single use in a single building. So I looked through the borough's code with regard to the purposes of zoning to see which specific purposes we are fulfilling and advancing. And I had pulled out a couple of them, namely item A, which is to plan and guide the appropriate use or development of all land in a manner which will promote the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare by means including the following. 1, regulating the location of buildings and establishing standards of development, which include setback lines for buildings designed for residential, commercial, industrial, office, and other uses, and by fixing reasonable standards to which buildings and structures shall conform. Next is prohibiting incompatible uses and prohibiting uses that are incompatible with the character of development of the permitted use within the zone. I know it's a little wordy, but in this particular case, we had laid out the property, I think, in a very creative manner to keep our building to the north, which is adjacent to the neighbor's garage, and eliminate the parking area that was adjacent to the property to bring that along the street. By eliminating the access onto Roll Avenue, I think that's also an important facet because it takes the traffic off of the residential street, whereas Oak in this area is a noisier part of the property. It's adjacent to the state highway. So I think that the location design does promote that goal. The other thing I want to mention is with regard to incompatibility, to my knowledge, there's been no complaints of this use. It's been there for decades. I think it's a beneficial use for the area. And I see this as more or less a very quiet use. It's not a noise generator. It's not a traffic generator. It's open only till 7 o'clock at night. And based upon my analysis, this property appears to have been commercial since the 1940s. So this is not really introducing a different pattern of development into an established residential area. We're not demolishing a house and putting up an animal hospital. There's always kind of been something on this corner that's not been a house. So I think that we're staying with the character of the neighborhood. Not to mention that this is obviously a huge improvement to the property. With regard to providing adequate air, light, and open space, we did actually scale this back from our original proposal. The building was much larger than the 5,000 square feet it is today. And the primary purpose of that was to increase yard areas and to provide as much green space as possible. But I do want to note that that was balanced with also providing the most parking we could possibly provide. Because off-street parking can also become a nuisance to a neighborhood if people are patronizing a business or whatever, and they have to constantly park in front of people's houses and driveways. That is also a problem. So we do want to be conscious of that due to the location. We don't want people parking at the firehouse. So when we designed the property, we did want to provide as much parking as possible. Item G was to provide sufficient space in appropriate locations for residential, recreational, commercial, industrial uses. Again, I think this is a sufficient location because the use already exists at the property. And then item I, which to me is the most important, is the desirable visual environment. I think the architect did a fabulous job. There were numerous iterations of the building. This is the final version that you see before you today. And to me, that would definitely fulfill the desirable visual environment. Now, one of the things we're trying to rectify here is that if this is such a wonderful use of the property, the enhanced burden of proof, which is if it's so great and perfect for this location, why wasn't it included as a permitted use in the zone? That's easy to answer because it's a residential zone and residential zones frequently don't allow medical or non-residential uses. So while under the law, the veterinary hospital is not specifically defined as an inherently beneficial use, nonetheless, it is certainly a beneficial use because if this were a regular hospital, it would have the protection of inherently beneficial. Most of us have pets, and most of us have had the need to visit a veterinarian either on a regular emergency basis. I think that being in this neighborhood for many decades, we would want to keep this use in this neighborhood and continue to provide the service that is being provided. Again, back to my nuisance issue, the hospital does close at 7 p.m. during the week and 1 p.m. on Saturdays. So it's hard to imagine that they would be creating any kind of a noise or nuisance to the residents. Looking back at some of the positives of the application, the layout of the site, definitely a positive. It's a big improvement. We're removing the access to Roll Avenue. We're removing the parking lot adjacent to the residence. We're removing the 2 secondary uses. And again, the architecture, I can't say enough, is going to be a large improvement to the corner. It's state of the art, it's modern, and I think it'll serve this use for many decades to come. Now, when we look at negatives of projects, the types of things that usually come out as negatives are the things associated with construction flood zones, degradation or filling of wetland areas and tree clearing, encroachment to streams, something that would generate a lot of noise. And the only negative that I could really come up with that's applicable to the project would be traffic. So I did an analysis based on IT criteria, looking at the anticipated trips that would be visiting this property, assuming this was a completely new use that didn't exist. And I found that in the AM peak hour, the number of estimated trips is 15 cars in and 6 cars out. In the PM peak hour, it's 9 cars in and 15 cars out. And Saturday, 24 trips during the peak hour, which was 12 in and 12 out. Given the fact that this is an existing well-defined roadway network, I just don't think that these numbers are even significant and they could be considered negligible. I have no concerns at all that this use is going to be generating any kind of significant traffic that's even noticeable. And again, traffic is usually associated with a negative use, and I just don't see it in this application. So that being said, I feel that there's no detriment to the public health, safety, and welfare. I don't think we're impairing the zoning ordinance. Again, and I don't want to reiterate, the use already exists on the property. We are improving it significantly, and we're getting rid of two other uses that are secondary in nature that would no longer be there anymore. I would take questions if you have any.
Well, before you take questions,
Yes,
let me,
if I
let me
missed
just,
something.
no, that's okay. I'm just going to ask some follow-ups. So technically, this is really a D2 variance. It's an expansion of a non-conforming use. The enhanced standard of proof is a little less stringent on this situation. And under the Coventry Square decision, really the primary focus is whether or not the intensity of the use can be accommodated on site.
That's right.
All right. In your professional opinion, can that occur here?
100%. I think we have the parking. I think we have the right access. So I think the site is suitable for this type of a project.
Okay. And I know we've covered some of the bulk variances and some of the design waivers. Let's talk about the bulk variances. In your professional opinion as a planner, can we satisfy the proofs under a C2 flexible C variance standard? In essence, Mr. Lieber, did the benefits of this project outweigh any detriments?
100%. And I didn't want to go into a C1 by saying, oh, it's a strange shaped lot. We don't have any more land available or anything like that. Because I just want to be conservative and say that we're asking for this relief because there are certain things that, frankly, we can't comply with the 50-foot buffer, but as far as the yard setbacks and the lot coverage, being that it's not a residential use in a residential zone, I think that the positives of what we're proposing greatly outweigh the negatives. I frankly don't find any negatives with regard to redeveloping this property to accommodate the hospital, but I agree with, your statement.
All right. And the last question, as to the design waivers, we've requested a number of design waivers. Those are triggered, Mr. Lieber. Are they not triggered as a result of making sure that we can provide adequate off-street parking, the elimination of the driveway off of Roll Avenue? And that's what's really triggering the waivers in this scenario.
Yes, it's directly correlated with what we're trying to satisfy in weighing both off-street parking. And I didn't touch on the signage variance because I almost forgot, but when it comes to signage, that is definitely a safety issue. We do need wayfinding signage, especially when somebody comes by and sees that the old building's not there anymore. We want people to know that this is still the same hospital. So we do have building mounted signage, which in my opinion is not overdone. It's not gaudy in any way. I think it was done by a professional sign company designer. I think it complements the architecture of the building, and I think it's important to have.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I don't have any further questions. I think Mr. Lieber's comprehensively covered the planning aspects.
John, you want to make any comments?
Just a couple quick ones. Respectfully, I would disagree that the application's for a D2 because we have a lot that was not part of the veterinary hospital previously. So this, in my opinion, should be considered a D1 use variance. So the testimony that was provided was to that effect. So I don't have any issue with Mr. Lieber's testimony. I just want to make sure that
No objection.
resolution's clear on that. I would also, as I mentioned before, raise that the offsite sign requires a use variance as well, considering that it's not on the same property as the principal use, and that's something that's prohibited under the borough ordinance. Mr. Lieber did provide testimony about safety-related issues for signage. I would just follow up. Is the sign designed in such a way to be visible from Route 9 essentially?
It is. Most of the cars that I anticipate would be exiting right off the highway onto Oak Street. And really the first thing you see today is that empty sign frame that's standing out there.
Okay. And is it likely based on the street network around there that virtually everyone's going to be coming from that direction?
I think for the most part. I mean, to me, it's important that when you're coming around that curve on Route 9 that you see that sign because you don't have a lot of time to exit. So to me, it's a wayfinding measure that I think is very important.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Members have any comments? I have a couple things. I guess we didn't talk about the signs a lot, so I just want to understand. So we have the sign across the street. It's an existing sign.
Right.
You're gonna change the design. Is that gonna be lighted?
Give me 1 second. I think it is internally illuminated.
It'll be illuminated.
Is it 24 hours a day, or we're gonna have a limit on?
We don't need to illuminate it 24 hours a day.
Okay, so can we
if
put
it's the
some,
board's preference, we can dim
put
it
a
at night.
time on it then?
We can dim it.
Internal or external lighting?
Internal or external?
Internally lit, it's probably internally. lit.
Internal,
It's internal.
right. So just during the operation hours?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably would stay on maybe, yeah, I mean, in the winter, it's going to be on from 4 to 7. We don't need to have it on at night. So,
No, not past 7.
correct.
Okay. All right. So then you have a sign on the front of the building, Oak Street.
Right, building mounted.
Yeah. We'll point out where on here that is. At least I can't figure it out.
Yeah, we're going to get you the sign
One
detail.
of these years I will.
Yeah, go over to sheet 10 on the site plan.
Yeah, that was really confusing, to be honest with you.
So what he had done is he has 3 sketches. Each one is a different sign location on the building. So starting at the top right corner, it says sign location number 1, north elevation. And then he has a blow up of that sign. So you'll see it's measured, 261.5 inches by 36 inches.
It says Animal Hospital of Sayreville, and it looks like it's on bricks. Is that,
Yeah, that's the architectural facade in that corner of the building.
okay. So this is going to be like raised letters? Or,
It's a white acrylic face that's backlit with LEDs.
okay,
Yeah, they're raised off the surface of the building.
okay.
And then
So-
going to the next row.
So that's going to also be 7 o'clock? Okay,
And turn it at night as well. Yeah,
okay.
that's fine.
And that's just a white light, right?
Mhm.
No flashing, just
No
white.
flashing, no scrolling.
Okay.
No.
Well, part of that sign faces.
You know, there used to
I
be,
know- I
you
know
know
what
what
you're
kind of
talking
bar
about.
there was before.
So you've got a hell of an opportunity. Is there any way to not illuminate the residential part and so you could at least advertise your business to people on Route 9?
One side is illuminated. The only side I think that may be illuminated here
Is
is
the
the one facing.
facing traffic,
Facing.
Oh.
line.
facing
On the
traffic.
side, I think it's just a sign. I'm not 100% sure.
He calls it out as illuminated channel letters, but if it, all 3. Yeah.
Mark, I think number 3 is indicated non-illuminated.
Step back just
Oh,
enough that you go
I see that.
So that, the sign that you're coming up off the line and seeing that big, that's gonna help the client know that it's there.
Only one side will be illuminated.
Right, the Oak Street.
All right, thank you.
Okay. We have a confused attorney, so that's never good. Okay. Sign across the street, that'll be internally lit. Okay, the Oak Street sign will be lit until 7 PM. Is that internally lit?
I would imagine it is.
Yeah, that would be sign location number 2 on the plan.
And the number 3 sign, final one, that's not gonna be lit at all.
No.
Okay, so number 3 is actually a sign on the canopy that overhangs the door. And that says non-illuminated channel letters.
And that sign faces the parking lot, correct? The on-site parking lot, so facing Roll.
Right.
Yes.
Is there another sign?
Well, there's sign number 1, which is the north elevation. That does say illuminated channel as well.
North side. Is that the one where the tattoo parlor is?
Right, it faces where the tattoo parlor was.
That's the Oak Street
Okay.
side.
No, it's facing north.
It's the
Yeah, it's probably facing the house.
Carney
On
Street.
Carney, exactly. It would be facing the backyard on Carney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I know you mentioned 7 o'clock, and I just want to follow up on Mr. Esposito because I think I heard him say that maybe it's an opportunity for advertising to maybe have it lit a little bit later. We would not be adverse to that. I mean, I wouldn't want to obviously stretch it too late into the evening, but
Well, the fact that it's facing the highway only, I
Yep.
don't think that's an issue.
okay. All right. That's fine. So if we maybe we would say 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, whatever it is, but I think Mr. Esposito raises a nice point.
So you have, just to review, you have the sign across the street, and then you have signs on 3 sides of the building.
Yes.
Yes.
And 2 of the signs are lit on the building and the third is not.
Correct.
Okay, continue, thank you. And the third one is to the parking lot on Roll Avenue,
Yes.
and that's not lit. Okay. Do you anticipate increase in the number of customers, patients after you're done, or is it going to be a kind of a wash? Give them the microphone, okay?
Look, I always wanted to stay small. I always wanted to be, have a relationship with my clients. This building is just for me to work in a better, bigger space. I'm not, whoever comes to my practice, they're welcome, right? I don't advertise a lot. It's word of mouth. If you want to come, you come. I don't expect to get bigger. I don't want to get bigger. I want a better place to work in.
So you have the same number of hours and the same number of
Yeah, that's
appointments.
not going to change.
All right, so I wouldn't just, so really, the intensity isn't changing. We're looking for something to work with.
I just want to be in a better place.
Right, the intensity isn't changing.
Right.
So as
Like,
far
I'm
as,
not gonna go
as far as the
24
intensity
hours.
of the, as
Right.
far as the intensity of what's going to happen at this, it's happening now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's
Okay.
exactly happening now. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And I think just to kind of sum that issue up, I mean, this is a building that was built in the 1970s. Veterinary practice in the 1970s, at least. The building was built earlier, but Dr. Spinizzola just really needs to get to a modern facility. And this is really going to be a state of the art and will accomplish his needs, Mr. Chairman.
All right.
With solar panels? Just curious.
I don't think any were planned.
Just a side note, with all these signs that are going in, you'll be open till midnight instead of 7 o'clock.
So we have parking across the street I don't know if the applicant can do this because it's a street. Can we put a crosswalk in? Jay, can you comment on that? Is that,
I think you'd have to get approval, probably first through the police department, because you'd be creating a mid-block crosswalk. You don't have a 4-way intersection here. So opposite Roll, you'd have to create a crosswalk. So that might
the
require,
applicant can't do anything about it?
he could maybe, if you wanted as a condition, approach the police department to see if something can be done to provide a safe means of access across the street. Just explore it and see what the result is.
Yeah, we can request that of the police. If they want us to put stripes, some kind of crosswalk, we could do that.
Right. Anybody else have any follow-up questions? Oh, in Jay's report, I think it was flat roof. That's not allowed.
It's really a residential zone, of course. So the standard for residential houses, it requires that there be a pitched roof of some type. So they need a design exception from the roof design.
Need that for equipment?
Well, we need a flat roof for the HVAC. Yeah, exactly, Mr.
Right,
Chairman.
that's good, that's good, okay.
And just in terms of the overall design of the building, it's a more modern aesthetic, and typically a pitched roof on this type of sort of modern industrial design would not really fit in.
It's not a residence, it's a business.
Correct.
All right, anybody else? Okay, I'll open it to the public now. Anybody in the public wish to make comments on this application? Not seeing anybody, I'll close the public portion. Members want to make comments before we go to resolution, or we just we can go to a resolution on this application.
I'll make a comment. Hearing all the testimony that I've heard tonight in reference to this application, I like it, and I think that Serval will be a better place with a place like this. I do know a lot of people who know Dr. Spinizzola, they'll go to him, and Melrose will be a much better place too. And I'm in favor of this application with everything that was discussed tonight. Thank you.
Okay, can I have a resolution on this application? A motion, sorry, motion.
I'll make the motion to approve this application.
Second? Okay. Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Green.
Yes.
Mrs. Coxey.
Yes.
Mr. Castleton.
Yes.
Mr. Bell.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Look forward to having this project built for you.
Very good. Okay, we have 3 resolutions to approve tonight. The first one is Dish Wireless, Resolution 2312. Can I have a motion to approve this resolution? Who seconded? Oh, Dominic. Roll call vote, please. Yes?
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Mr. Castleton.
Yes.
Mrs. Coxey.
Yes.
Mr. Bell.
Second resolution is Bay Shore Development, 2316. Motion to approve.
There are 2 minor changes to this. In paragraph 3 on page 1, it was Todd Kessler that spoke, not Scott. And on page 2, at the bottom, paragraph 1, it says the addition approved herein, better wording, the construction approved herein. Changes, everything remains the same.
You want to make a motion?
Motion to accept.
To Mr. Bella, seconds. Okay. Roll call vote. Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Mr. Castleton.
Yes.
Mrs. Coxey.
Yes.
Mr. Bell.
Yes.
Speak up, make sure your microphone's on.
One's broken.
Yes.
Doesn't work.
And the last one, Joseph and Diane Hayes, 2317. And I have a motion to approve this resolution.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Kaczynski.
Yes.
Mr. Esposito.
Yes.
Mr. Castleton.
Yes.
Mrs. Coxey.
Yes.
Mr. Bell.
Yes.
Okay, can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August meeting?
Motion to approve.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Right now, I'm going to open it to the public for general comments. Not applying to any particular application, not seeing anyone coming forward. We're going to close the public portion. And is there any other business that we need to discuss?
Welcome back, Ron.
Yeah, that's right. Welcome back, Ron. That's where you need to be, right here. And I guess we're done. Motion to adjourn. Second, okay. We're adjourned.
Right.
Have a nice Labor Day weekend, everyone.
Weekend.